At a nightclub in Izmir, two close friends, Meltem and Goltgum, are out dancing and trying to have a good time. But they keep getting distracted because they are worried about their friend Kumru, who has been sitting alone in the restroom, lost in her thoughts. Kumru is heartbroken after learning her ex has just gotten married. She tries to hide it and rejoin her friends, forcing a smile and pretending she is fine. But the pain keeps building until she cannot hold back her tears anymore. In the end, she decides to leave early and go home. This is where it all begins. This is Love at 39 Degrees. 3 years later, Kumru is living in Istanbul, and she is now a lawyer. She is about to take on a divorce case in Izmir, the city where she was born, and also the city tied to some of her darkest memories. Before making the trip, she talks to her psychiatrist, Gafur, and asks for his opinion. Gafur encourages her to stop running from the past and finally make peace with it. Taking that advice to heart, Kumru decides to accept the case and return to Izmir. Back in Izmir, a handsome, athletic man with a thin mustache is asleep on a couch. His name is Fati. He suddenly gets jolted awake when his best friend Davrin shows up. The two of them share the same big dream. They want to become a successful band. Davrin brings exciting news. There is a concert happening that night. And since the event organizer is Davrin's friend, they have been offered a spot as the opening act. Fati hesitates. He feels like he is not ready for a stage that big, and on top of that, the venue is far away. Worse, his father has taken back his car. Fati's father, Salim, is a wealthy man in the car rental business, and he keeps pushing Fati to join the family company. But Fati refuses. He only wants to chase his music dream. On the way to the airport, Kumru gets messages about Meltem's upcoming wedding. It immediately puts her in a tough spot. Part of her wants to be there for her friend, but another part of her is terrified of running into her ex, who will almost certainly be at that wedding. Meanwhile, Fati decides to take a risk. If he wants to make it to that concert, he needs a car, so he goes to Salim and asks for help. Salim agrees, but only with a condition. Fati has to work as a driver for one of Salim's clients arriving that afternoon. If the client gives Fati a great rating, the car becomes Fati's. And that client turns out to be Kumru. When Kumru arrives at the airport, she calls Fati right away. But Fati is distracted, playing around with a little kid, and his phone is on silent. Kumru spots him anyway, recognizing his name and connecting the dots. Fati apologizes for the mistake and tries to be friendly, trying to make conversation. Kumru is not interested. She stays cold and just tells him to get moving to the car. Her irritation does not stop there. Fati does not even realize he is supposed to open the door for his passenger. Instead, he casually gets into the car himself, acting like it is no big deal, and Kumru's frustration only grows. Along the drive, Fati tries to lighten the mood by starting small conversations. He asks whether Kumru has ever been to Izmir before. She explains that she is actually from there, but for personal reasons, she left the city 3 years ago and moved to Istanbul. Instead of sensing her discomfort, Fati keeps praising Izmir, talking about how beautiful and lively it is compared to Istanbul, which he describes as exhausting and filled with people who live only for work. When Kumru notices the fuel gauge is almost empty, she scolds him for being careless and not checking the car properly. Fati casually admits that he is not really a driver and is only doing this job for the day. At the gas station, Fati finally opens up. He explains that his father owns a car rental business and that this job is part of a deal between them.
Olur mu ya? Alın alın.
Ben bugünlük destek atıyorum sadece.
Ehliyetiniz var ama değil mi?
Var. Tabii ki.
If Kumru gives him a good rating, the car will officially become his. While waiting for the tank to fill, Kumru asks about his work. Fati proudly says he is a musician who is fairly well known in the area. But when she asks where he usually performs, he suddenly goes quiet. Once they arrive at the destination, Fati asks Kumru to go inside first while he looks for a parking spot nearby. Kumru takes the elevator without realizing it is under maintenance. The repair worker is wearing headphones and cannot hear her calls for help. Panicking, Kumru calls Fati and tells him she is stuck. Since he cannot find a parking space, Fati leaves the car in front of a restaurant and promises to buy 25 meals later in exchange for keeping it there. When he reaches the building, Fati alerts the repair worker and tries to calm Kumru down. He encourages her to open the door and keeps talking to distract her, once again comparing the charm of Izmir to the chaos of Istanbul. This only irritates Kumru further, and the tension between them grows. After she finally gets out safely, Kumru lashes out at Fati for focusing more on praising the city than helping her. Fati explains that he did it to distract her and keep her calm. Realizing his intention, Kumru eventually apologizes. Not long after, Kumru's client Helen contacts her with troubling news. Her husband, Sevket, has hired 3 lawyers to handle their divorce. Sensing this as a form of intimidation, Kumru decides to introduce Fati as her legal assistant to strengthen her position. The mediation process finally begins. Since both sides had previously agreed on how the assets would be divided, Kumru asks Sevket to sign the prepared documents. However, things take an unexpected turn. Sevket has changed his mind. His lawyer presents a new agreement stating that he is only willing to give up a small portion of his assets. Sevket claims that throughout the marriage, he was always the one who gave in and fulfilled Helen's wishes, and now he refuses to do so anymore. In the middle of the heated discussion, Sevket suddenly receives a phone call. Helen immediately suspects that the caller is his mistress, especially when he steps outside the room, which only deepens her suspicion. To observe him more closely, Kumru asks for a short break. When she sees Sevket talking on the phone in another room, she quietly approaches and starts recording. She notices him writing something on a piece of paper. As soon as he leaves, Kumru sneaks inside and takes the note he left behind. Meanwhile, Helen opens up to Fati and admits that she still loves Sevket deeply. Determined to win the case, Kumru decides to pause the mediation process, hoping she can find solid proof that Sevket has been unfaithful. Before leaving, Sevket casually reminds Helen about the upcoming wedding of a friend's child named Meltem. It turns out this Meltem is the same person who happens to be Kumru's close friend. On their way back to the car, Kumru tells Fati about the video she recorded of Sevket talking to another woman. She also shows him the paper she managed to take. Based on the information she got from Helen, Kumru now plans to track down Sevket's car. Keeping his promise, Fati buys 25 packages of bread from the restaurant where he left the car. While Kumru tries to figure out what the writing on the paper means, Fati returns and shares the food with her and some street children nearby. Seeing his kindness and sincerity, Kumru cannot help but smile, slowly feeling drawn to him. To track down Sevket's car, Fati suggests meeting his friend Iskender. With a relative in the police and many connections, Iskender might be able to help them. When they arrive at the dock, they find Iskender waiting on a boat. After introducing themselves, he invites them aboard. Kumru hesitates at first, knowing she still has court later that day, and urges him to locate Sevket as quickly as possible. However, Iskender insists that if she wants results, she needs to come along with him. With no other choice, Kumru agrees. While waiting for updates, Fati is seen quietly writing something in his notebook, though it is unclear what he is working on. Instead of tracking Sevket right away, Iskender casually suggests they go fishing first, which completely frustrates Kumru. For her, this case could determine her future. Desperate, she urges Iskender to call his relative and track Sevket's location immediately. As no information comes in, her frustration grows and she begins taking it out on both Fati and Iskender. In the middle of her frustration, Kumru shows the video she recorded. To her surprise, Iskender quickly analyzes it and manages to figure out where Sevket might be.
Dudaklarını okudum. Dario Moreno diyor.
Döndür tekneyi. Döndürün tekneyi. Bu kadar da yavaş değil.
When they arrive at the location, Iskender is not feeling well, so Fati asks him to stay in the car while he and Kumru search the area on foot. As they walk through a crowd of people dancing, the atmosphere slowly pulls them closer together. In that moment, something warm and unspoken begins to grow between them. Not long after, they spot Sevket walking with another woman toward a nearby building. Because Kumru is still afraid of elevators, she insists on taking the stairs instead. The climb is exhausting, and by the time they reach the top, they have already lost track of Sevket. To make matters worse, Fati's car, with Iskender still asleep inside, gets towed away because it was parked improperly. Realizing what happened, Fati and Kumru rush to the impound lot. While waiting for the car to be released, Fati continues writing in his notebook. When Kumru asks what he is writing, he quickly changes the subject. Not long after, Iskender arrives. Thanks to help from his relative in the police force, they manage to retrieve the car. He also promises that later that afternoon they will receive new information about Sevket's whereabouts. Suddenly, Iskender gets a call reminding him about Meltem's wedding. Once again, the same Meltem who happens to be Kumru's close friend. Kumru then shows Fati her full schedule for the day, including her plan to visit her mother. As they continue spending time together, they begin opening up about their lives. Kumru shares the pain of losing her father 15 years earlier, a wound that still deeply affects her. She then asks why Fati chose to become a musician when he could have easily taken over his father's business. Fati explains that true happiness cannot be bought with money. He believes real love comes from a feeling that cannot be explained, only felt. In that quiet moment, something begins to grow between them. Their eyes meet and it becomes clear that a gentle spark has started to form.
Ama ikisi de aynı kapıya çıkıyor galiba.
Ne gülüyorsun?
Çok affedersin, iyi misin? Gel.
According to their schedule, Kumru invites Fati and Iskender to visit her mother, Zeynep. Before heading there, she and Fati stop by a shop to buy some food as a small gift. Along the way, Kumru unexpectedly runs into Gulcem. After reconnecting, Gulcem reminds her once again about Meltem's wedding. Since Kumru has been avoiding the event, she tries to come up with excuses. As they walk toward the car, Gulcem casually asks Kumru if she has feelings for Fati. At first, Kumru refuses to admit it. But when Gulcem jokingly says she might go after Fati herself, Kumru instantly reacts with visible panic, revealing her true feelings. It turns out, Kumru is under pressure because of her upcoming court schedule. At the same time, Fati is also racing against time since he has a performance with Davran later that day. If things get too tight, the plan is for Iskender to drive Kumru, while Fati and Davran head to the concert using Iskender's van. When they arrive at the beach where Zeynep is relaxing, Kumru chooses to stay inside the car instead of approaching her mother right away. Gulcem and Iskender are the ones who walk over to greet Zeynep. When Fati asks why she is avoiding her mother, Kumru finally opens up about the painful memories that still haunt her, and the reason she has grown to hate Izmir so deeply. Years ago, her father worked as a government official in Istanbul, while her mother was from Izmir. Their family once lived happily until Zeynep convinced her husband to move to Izmir. From that moment on, everything fell apart. Because of his honesty and position, Kumru's father made powerful enemies. He was eventually accused of corruption, and the pressure destroyed him emotionally until he passed away. Since then, Kumru has blamed her mother for everything that happened. After introducing Fati to Zeynep, Kumru mentions Meltem's wedding and asks her mother to get the dress she plans to wear while she waits outside. But as a mother who has not seen her daughter in 3 years, Zeynep begs them to stay a little longer. Inside the room, Fati gently encourages Kumru to make peace with her past and stop blaming her mother. When he notices a walking cane, he becomes curious about who it belongs to. That question leads Kumru to share one of the most painful memories of her life. She once had a boyfriend named Meet, whom she deeply loved. Without warning, he broke up with her and later married another woman. Confused and heartbroken, Kumru confronted him, believing he had cheated. He denied it, but one day she saw him being affectionate with another woman. And in that moment, she lost control and suffered a devastating accident. Kumru also admits that she never wanted to attend Meltem's wedding because she knows Mite will be there. Zeynep then offers her a dress she once wore during her engagement to Kumru's father. The dress carries deep emotional meaning for her. In that moment, Kumru finally realizes that her mother has been quietly holding onto her own grief and longing all this time. On the other side, Fati receives a call from Davran, reminding him to get ready for the concert. Wanting to chase his dream, Fati plans to excuse himself from Kumru. But the moment he sees her wearing her dress, something inside him shifts. Her calm presence and quiet beauty completely captivate him. In the end, he chooses to stay with Kumru instead of going to perform with Davran. As the time for Helen's divorce hearing approaches, Kumru grows increasingly anxious while trying to understand the meaning behind the numbers Sevket had written earlier. Then, after overhearing a phone conversation between Zeynep and her friend, Kumru finally realizes that the numbers refer to the name of a street in the city. Iskender suggests that Kumru and Fati head straight to the courthouse, while he and Zeynep go to check the address themselves. On the way, Fati receives another call from Davran, who vents his frustration about being abandoned for a woman. His anger quickly fades, though, when he sees the beautiful Gulsum. At the same time, Iskender and Zeynep begin to grow closer as well. Before long, they spot Sevket walking alongside an attractive woman. They manage to take photos of the two together and immediately send them to Kumru, who is waiting at the courthouse with Fati and Helen. At first, Kumru hesitates to show the photos to Helen, but knowing it is the right thing to do for her future, she finally shows the evidence. After the hearing ends, Gulsem invites everyone to relax at a cafe. While Davran once cared deeply about performing at the concert, he now chooses to accompany Gulcem to Meltem's wedding instead. At the cafe, Gulcem happily announces that she and Davran are officially dating. As a friend, Kumru gently reminds her not to get too serious too quickly, especially since they barely know each other, and Izmir is known for complicated relationships. Frustrated, Fati finally reveals that Kumru still deeply resents Mete.
Hala mutluluktan havalara uçmuyordu gördün. Esas korkak sensin diyorum.
öyle mi?
Bıraksaydın bence bir kez daha denerlerdi.
And that is the real reason she refuses to attend Meltem's wedding. Gulçam is hurt by this revelation, unable to believe that Kumru still carries so much pain. She reminds her that Meet only married his current wife after their breakup. Even so, Kumru refuses to accept it and harshly judges Gulçam for falling for someone like Davran, whom she sees as unreliable. Things take another turn when Fati's car is once again towed away. Panic sets in for Kumru, since her laptop and important work documents are still inside. Suddenly, a traffic accident occurs, forcing them to deal with the local police. Fortunately, the other party agrees to settle the matter peacefully, allowing Kumru to walk free. To her surprise, the person involved in the accident turns out to be the musician scheduled to perform at Meltem's wedding. After everything that happens, Kumru becomes convinced that she does not belong in the city anymore. She decides to return to Istanbul that very day. Fati, unsure of what to say or do, can only watch her go, quietly thanking her for the brief but meaningful moments they shared together. On the way to the airport, Kumru suddenly receives a call from Helen. She explains that she had been wrong about Sevket all along. The woman he was seen with was actually the daughter of an old friend who was offering him an apartment. Because of that, Helen and Sevket decide to cancel their divorce. After retrieving the car, Fati feels empty inside and chooses to return it to his father. Just as he is about to leave, he is surprised by the arrival of Davran, Gulçam, Iskender, and Zeynep. They have come to pick him up and bring him to Meltem's wedding. Before leaving, Gulçam shares the happy moment on social media. When Kumru sees the post, a deep sense of guilt washes over her. At that moment, Kumru finally realizes that her hatred toward Izmir was never about the city itself, but about her own unresolved pain. Nearby, a cycling festival is taking place, and an idea suddenly comes to her. She approaches the event staff and explains her situation. Moved by her story, they agree to lend her a bicycle. As the sun begins to set, Kumru pushes herself to reach Meltem's wedding on time. Meanwhile, guests start arriving at the venue, including Fati and the others. One by one, they offer their congratulations to the bride. Not long after, Kumru arrives and steps forward to address everyone. In her speech, she wishes Meltem a lifetime of happiness. She also apologizes to everyone she has hurt, including Gulçam, her mother, and even Mide. For so long, she believed Izmir was a place filled only with pain. But she now realizes that it is also a place full of love and second chances, including the love she has just discovered herself. Moved by her words, Fati steps forward and finally confesses the feelings he has kept inside.
Nasıl olacak bu iş? Bence senin biraz İzmir'e benzemen lazım.
Evet.
As a final expression of his love, he sings a song he wrote especially for Kumru. And with that, the story comes to a close. So the moral of the story is, if your life feels messy, emotional, and confusing, just wait a bit, because somehow love, chaos, traffic tickets, and bad decisions will magically fix everything at the same time.